So yes, I'll be talking about Enterprise Platform, which you've known by now. Nick is Mr. Enterprise Platform. I'd actually like to reference you back to Lambertus's talk. And he said that what led him to investigate the use of Project Insights were some triggers, and some attention grabbers. And I'm humbled to see that Dennis's blog was mentioned there as well as my presentation. And this is more or less that same presentation that triggered Lambertus to do his work. And the reason I bring that up is because Enterprise Platform has been around for a long time. It can do an awful lot of things, but our challenge has been in how to get that across, how to communicate its value. So really, I'd like you to think of the title of this presentation as Demystifying Enterprise Platform. And hopefully, the takeaway from this will be you could quickly explain what it is and maybe think of how you could use it. All right, so I'll play out some scenarios here, and you might be able to relate to some, if not all of them. Okay, so does this sound familiar? The pointer's not working. That's familiar. I'm an engineer. The production team wants the latest production drawings every morning. And now I have to go identify which drawings have changed and gather them manually and send them out each day. Okay. I'm a manager. I need to review my team's work periodically. I might need to communicate progress and point out changes to other teams, and even to the executive team, but I'm already busy enough. Doing this manually is inefficient. Or I'm in planning. I need to see how the project is progressing. I need to know what parts are needed next and know where on the factory floor they need to be close to the right manufacturing machinery. So with all these situations, really the message is as deadlines get tighter, manual information collecting and reporting becomes impractical. So the proposal is let Enterprise Platform support your workflows. Okay, so really the tagline here for Enterprise Platform, it's delivering data for decisions. Now, SSI is obviously known for ShipConstructor, and for good reason. It is our main product, and it serves the needs of CAD modelers and makes production drawings for the shop floor and so forth. But it hasn't really been able to reach other departments as well, even though it could. And so by other departments, I mean you have other design stakeholders. You have your production team, you have your planning and procurement department, your project management and even change management departments. And so in order to get the data from ShipConstructor projects out to these stakeholders for improved decision making, you use Enterprise Platform to publish that data out. So it provides not only ShipConstructor data to designers, but also to the wider world of non-ShipConstructor users and even systems. And systems is a key point too. So I have these little icons, and they'll be peppered throughout the rest of the presentation. The reason I have them up here is to remind people of what Enterprise Platform is for. It's for getting the right information to the right stakeholders in the right format at the right time. So okay, that's a high-level statement. What's in it for you? Let's bring this back to reality. For CAD modelers, think of it, these are some ideas. Maybe you want to clean up your model drawings by removing M-links. Or maybe you want to generate assembly drawings as PDFs to send them out to get them printed. Or publish pipe arrangement drawings and send that to the production department. As engineering or CAD managers, every night you could generate NWD drawings of models. Why? For quick communication, for collaboration. Also to view the progress of how things are going. View the modeling progress within Navisworks. Every morning you have a new fresh NWD. Okay, well how did that compare to yesterday's? And you see it progress. You can filter parts by revision to generate an NWD of only the changes. Tell me what happened in the last day. Tell me what happened in the last week. And that can help facilitate conversations. For project management and change management, again, what has changed within a period of time? You know, what are the impacted parts? What are the impacted nest drawings, let's say? So there's a lot of information here about how the project is changing over time. And this can also be used to help with production control for structure. In other words, when should you publish your nests to your machine operators? Or for distributed systems, when do you want to publish information on your systems and branches? Or for material control, maybe you need to publish your bill of materials at some point. So Enterprise Platform helps you do all of this. So when I talk about Enterprise Platform, it's actually a project portfolio of which we have a couple different offerings. So the offering that most people are familiar with is at the top. It's Publisher LT. And it's a desktop solution. The idea is, you know, you can just install it on your workstation. It's managed by individuals, and so that's popular for a lot of reasons. But we also have what we're calling the Information Hub, and that's a distributed system. And you know, it can benefit from the additional horsepower of a number of computing workstations. So if you have a very large project and there's a lot of teams doing things, or even if it's a smaller project and just very detailed drawings, you can bring additional computers to bear to get the data in the right format more quickly. So this is seen as more of a company-wide solution and therefore managed by IT. But the idea is it can you can give the additional horsepower you need to deal with the larger projects or even more outputs so that you can run it overnight and it's ready by morning, something like that. Okay, so let's give an example. And this is a visualization for team review. So design teams can benefit from having a 3D visualization as a reference to guide discussions. So what we're going to do is set up what we call a work package in Publisher LT. And that's going to generate a single Navisworks NWD of a piping system. So now these little icons come back, you know, the right information in the right format. So we're going to use the load criteria of this piping system, and the operation is going to be NWD of system. Now, I'd like to go on a little bit of an aside. So when we talk about load criteria, what do we mean? Really, it's a query for getting items of interest. And so those of you who've used ShipConstructor would be familiar with the load manager. It shows up time to time. And we use the same thing. So you can choose the items of interest based on parts, assemblies, drawings, spools, and the combinations thereof. So we create this load criteria using the load manager. And that can be saved and shared with your teammates. And then we want to get those items published in the right format for the end users. So in this case, I have a parts to NWD drawing selected. And Publisher and Publisher LT come pre-configured with nearly 100 operations. And that's just out of the box. There are many more on SSI Nexus that have come up through discussions with our user base. And also, like Norman was mentioning, we do take requests for custom operations to be written. Sometimes it's a matter of just a small tweak that can get things in the exact right format that you like. And sometimes it's more involved, but nonetheless, it's an example of how our flexible platform can be tailor-fit for your, to solve the problems that you have. And down she went. So on SSI Nexus Knowledge Base, we have a lot of operations that can be downloaded and imported. So back to the example, we want to select the load criteria of a piping system. So we go into Load Manager, down to Systems, and we want to select a specific system. And we have this system picker, and we're going to choose our fresh cooling water. And then that gets loaded into the project items, as you can see. And at the end of that row, there's this little square button. And you click that, and you're provided with not all 100 operations out of the box, but you're provided with the operations that pertain to that kind of item. And that's good, because you don't want to be distracted by stuff that doesn't pertain. So we know that, and we just pre-filter it based on the stuff that you can use. So we have an NWD of system, and then you run it. And we can set up an output directory. Oftentimes that's pointed to some network share on your computer network, or it can be right on your workstation. But again, you can go from the ShipConstructor user, you pick your system, and that can go out to other design stakeholders. You can open this in Navisworks Freedom, which is free, which I know Lambertus likes, or simulate or manage if you want to do clashes. Okay, example 2 has to do with figuring out what parts changed in the past 24 hours. So sometimes parts need to be modified, and this could result in re-nesting, let's say. So for this story, we want to create a work package showing the part properties and the associated plate nest for those recently modified parts. So again, the load criteria would be, let's find all parts whose revisions have changed in the last 24 hours, and then run part properties on them. You could further restrict the load criteria to say what plate parts have changed in the last 24 hours, because those are the things that are getting nested, and then run the operations. So setting the load criteria, we're going to choose parts, and then we're going to choose revisions. And these are the revisions that are stored in the ShipConstructor database. So as people are doing work, revisions get logged quietly to the database. And really, we're just asking that database, running a query saying, what has changed in the last 24 hours? And then from that, we set the operation. We're going to click Part Properties. Now, that operation is going to run on all these parts, but it will produce a single output that indicates all those parts within the output. And it's a TSV file, or a tab-separated variable file, and you can open it up in any text editor, but really Excel is quite nice for opening up these files. And you can see the part ID, the part name, the assembly, and on and so forth, and also, most importantly, the nest. So if these parts have changed, maybe you want to go check these nests to see if you need to re-nest. So that's very powerful. Oops. And if we get the video queued up. It's in the folder.
Okay.
Yeah. And if there's any trouble with it, it's okay.
Maybe it was just like we thought it was embedded.
Oh, no.
No.
That's okay. We can skip over it for now. If you want to see the video, just come see me afterwards. Basically, all I did in that video was showing you in real time how you'd use the load manager and how the screens change and so on. So we've talked about a visualization for the team. We've talked about tracking just a list of changed parts in the last 24 hours. This third example is a work package for the production team. And so let's say we're interested in an assembly. Our stakeholder is a production team, but they don't just want one output, they want a couple. So they want a PDF of the assembly, perhaps to print it out and give it to their team. A TSV of the assembly's parts, just to be familiar with them going in, and PDFs of related nest drawings. So also they want to be able to run this overnight, let's say, so we can run this on a schedule, either using our job server, if you're using the information hub, or you can script Publisher LT if you so choose. And so, where'd that slide go? The slide disappeared. But yeah, the idea is you can put a whole bunch of operations and do a single run and get all those operations. So it's not just one input, one kind of output. It's a number of inputs, number of outputs. And you can define that as a work package and run that as you need or run that automatically. So it's very flexible in that way. So now I'd like to talk about a perfect pairing, Enterprise Platform and Digital Hub. I know Dennis made mention of Digital Hub a bit earlier today, and I made mention of Shipbuilding PLM, which builds on Digital Hub, so we'll get into it here. Really, the Digital Hub is a system that sits adjacent to ShipConstructor, and it's a way for you to browse your project assets, your product data, and their relationships. So parts, assemblies, nests, bills of material, drawings, documentation. Imagine, really it's a web page, and you can hyperlink, you can learn about this part, it takes you to a new page, it tells you about the part's nest, the part's drawing, and you can just navigate around. You don't even have to be a ShipConstructor user. And it's very powerful because lots of times when you're communicating to people, the tools can get in the way sometimes. Somebody doesn't have the right system to open up a drawing, and Digital Hub basically puts it right in front of their nose. So that, if you're trying to learn something about what's happening in the project, you go to Digital Hub, and then you can browse it. And so, really, Digital Hub, the system that sits adjacent to ShipConstructor, it's using Enterprise Platform to harvest the data from the ShipConstructor projects and place it in a way that can be browsed over the web. Now, coming up in our roadmap is to add Shipbuilding PLM onto this. So Digital Hub is great because it has your parts and output drawings and the relationships between. That's very powerful on its own. But then, your mind starts to think, well, with those relationships, I could run these reports, or I could run a workflow. And so really that's where Shipbuilding PLM is going to come in to say, we can extend the Digital Hub by providing workflows and providing reports that really drive your shipyard's efficiencies or your design center's efficiencies. So to recap, here's Enterprise Platform, and its main job is to harvest data out of ShipConstructor projects to non-ShipConstructor users and even ShipConstructor users alike. It really frees the data to be consumed by a lot more people a lot more easily. So if I need a piping system, Enterprise Platform will give it to you. Here it is. If I need assembly drawings to print for the production team, well, here they are. And with Digital Hub, it will ask the system, what were the changes in the last 24 hours? And then those changes get recorded into Digital Hub so that somebody with a web browser can just go and browse it. And its relationships and its associated nests and everything just a click away. So that concludes my presentation. Hopefully it's been a trigger like it was for Lambertus, and you'll have a lot more questions after. Thank you.